Hello and welcome to Liberty Explored. Left-wing violence is on the rise, and at the same time, the calls to violence in their coded and cryptic wordings have also increased, and will come as no surprise that recent polling has indicated that violence is justified. Now, all it takes is for any of us to have witnessed the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination to recognize that the left wing has decided that the right wing should not exist. And in fact, anyone who's not on the left wing extremist mentality is an extreme right winger in the way that they talk. It's too difficult for them to understand anybody who's a moderate or a centrist. Essentially, if you defy the left wing ideology in any sense, that makes you an extreme right winger or alt-right. So real quick, we're going to look at this video with Tim Pool talking about justification of violence if you are opposing the left wing. So let's just check it out.
This is a poll from YouGov and The Economist, and it's a little hard to see, but basically what we have is reckless youth. Quote, is it ever justified for citizens to resort to violence in order to achieve their political goals? From ages 18 to 39, around 30% of liberals say yes. And among 40 to 59, it's around 15%.
That's crazy.
And just slightly less than 10. Conservatives have gone down. Conservatives have actually de-radicalized. Moderates have radicalized. So moderates and liberals. So it's important to understand how this graph is. 60 plus on the right, 40 to 59 in the middle, and 18 to 39. The younger generation of liberals are extremely violent. And what this means, people need to understand. Here's what's really crazy about the 18 to 39 cohort. 5 years ago, we're talking about 13 to 34, meaning they weren't even polling these people. Younger generations are becoming extremely radicalized. And as the boomers, I was talking to this, I don't know, he's probably 7 years old.
By the way, can I just say one thing? Look at the date on that. Charlie got assassinated on the September 10th. This poll was taken
September
the 12th to the 15th.
Yep.
Yep.
That should send chills down your spine.
And this is why we saw so many people on social media celebrating.
Yeah.
I talked to this old boomer guy, he's probably 70, and he was talking politics. And I said, the problem is we need more of you guys. I was like, the boomers, if you even look here, you can see liberal, conservative, and moderate boomers are less than 10% justification for violence. The younger liberals are who went insane. Younger conservatives are sane. Younger moderates are losing it a little bit. When these 18 to 39-year-olds are the 60 plus, when they're older, this whole graph, imagine where young liberals are going to be. They're going to be 80%. They're going to be saying they want violence. It's not going to be a third of the younger generation. It will be 2/3.
I pray you're wrong.
So what's going on here is, as that statistic shows, or that poll, that there's a clear justification for violence if you disagree with somebody politically. Now, I don't know about you, but I sense that to be even more than that, but it may just be because I've been getting death threats and people coming after me just for speaking out in a centrist perspective. I'm very middle of the road, you might say. I'm for America first. I'm definitely not a pro-war like a lot of right-wing people are. I'm definitely not for a lot of the left-wing stuff that's come out recently. That's just completely insane. And essentially there's only two choices, two perspectives allowed right now. Now, if you're like me, you might have noticed that the numbers seem even worse than that. And I would suggest that certain people, like if they're deeply tied to the Democrat Party, if they're volunteers or work in Democratic committees and or Democrat groups, right? Like individual regional location Democrat societies, they share a unique rhetoric amongst them, which is utilizing words like fascist and Nazi constantly. That's their constant refrain. And what that does is to dehumanize people. And one of the things that I've noticed specifically is that in my own family, I've been told the same exact things that my family will say about Charlie Kirk. So it only takes a very small amount of extrapolation to realize that if they would think that thing about me and to call me an alt-right or extreme right-wing person when they're talking on the phone and they're talking to other people, they essentially would justify my murder. And I'm talking family members. I'm talking very, very, very close friends that I've had for years on end, since high school, even before potentially. These are the people that want me dead. They won't admit it directly. I don't even think that they would vote in that poll as if justifying violence, because they would see some type of natural responsibility in that poll. But underlying it, because I see this through the communication I'm having online, if I come out against anything like for Make America Healthy Again, because RFK Jr. moved from the Democrat Party to Republican just to accomplish his goals, that makes me a right-winger because I support him, even though he started out as a Democrat. I think most of the people who are moderate like me actually considered themselves Democrat for many years prior to this current setting that we're in. However, what's happening now is this dehumanization at such a polarized extreme level that it doesn't matter who you are. If you're a part of that system in any way and see yourself as one of these extreme radicals on the left wing, you don't even have to be extreme. You're just anybody who's in it nowadays. You're so filled with that rhetoric. You're so filled with the dehumanization of the other side that if anybody even questions it, like you can't have a conversation. You can't even talk about it, right? You can't ask questions. Questions are not allowed. I mean, it's very disturbing. I think, I've come to the realization now that my family, including my mom and my sisters even, would rather me be dead. They'd rather me be dead than express my opinions, than have a conversation about the subject matter. They would absolutely justify my death in the context of something happening to me at one of these rallies, or if I were to speak out against, if I were to be an open debate in public and speak out against the left-wing violence, then that would justify my death, because I'm not a human in their eyes. I'm not a true American. I would never do that to them. I don't feel that way. I feel like the way you get through this stuff is by allowing the other side to have its natural power swings when it's in power. I mean, the left does nothing other than polarize themselves against Donald Trump. And while I don't believe in everything Donald Trump does, their polarization makes me support him more. The polarization and the extreme justification of violence, the lack of self-responsibility when it comes to media integrity, all of this is a coded call to violence. All of it is an extreme value system that reflects a type of revolutionary thinking that is a way of justifying the dehumanization of the other side, calling us fascists, even though we just want to talk and have a debate, calling us all these, any of the words that are used to justify this demonization. Now, just in the past month, things have gotten so bad for me specifically that I've been targeted. I've had people come after my forms of money making. So my income has been reduced to nothing. I have no job now. I have no ability to make money because I've been attacked in this way. And the justification is just that I oppose left-wing rhetoric, left-wing violence, and that I propose things like Maha and open debate, and I put out videos, so that makes me a vocal representative against the left wing only because the left wing has become unhinged, because it's so enraged that it actually uses this type of talk in rallies and in different type of social media. For instance, just yesterday, I believe it was, or the day before, Gavin Newsom came out and on his social media account actually said, Stephen Miller is a fascist. And what those things are doing, when people say that stuff, the goal is not to encourage free speech. It's to have a coded dialogue that takes advantage of people who have mental illness or might be radicalized in a way of revolutionary thinking through a series of projected falsehoods, through a type of institutional level brainwashing. Because that's what this is. It's brainwashing to think that these people are the worst human beings alive, that people like me are worse than the scum of the earth, that we are nothing more than criminals who deserve to be dead. Now, Stephen Crowder's gone over this a little bit, was talking about the specifics of how we categorize political violence and how many of the things that almost anybody would consider political violence completely have not been categorized as such, so that the left wing can still create these sound bites and talk about how it's more of a whataboutism. It's more about what about right-wing violence? And it's really about right-wing violence. And I really hope that the right wing can stop their violence when you don't see any of this. There isn't a single example coming from the right wing of somebody who was just a political pundit, a supporter, who doesn't have a position in any type of politics, who's literally just going out and talking to people like Charlie Kirk was, and to be so gruesomely assassinated in front of a large group of people, and for his death to be celebrated thereafter and continually. And many a politician has taken this stance where they justify his death. You just don't see that on the right wing. There isn't a single example. There isn't a single example of just someone who's just talking to people on the left wing who's been politically assassinated, and then because of the assassination, the right wing just dances on their grave at a very high proportion of social media content, and where people in schools like Harvard, that one interview that where the guy was just talking to students outside, and he said, "Can you believe that this many people feel justified in Charlie Kirk's death?" And the guy from Harvard said, "No, I'm surprised it's not more, because we're a liberal school." So really the assumption is behind these liberals that think this way, that not only was his death justified, but anybody who was to talk like him. So that means me, right? So they all do this. That means, through just a little bit of extrapolation, that means my family, whether they want to admit it or not, some of my best friends, all these people who have been attacking me, they want me dead. That's what's really going on. And they're justified in their own thinking. And they're going to parade on my deathbed. They're going to dance on my grave. They might even come to my funeral and be like, "Oh, Isaac was a good guy. Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame what happened to him. Says, yeah, he just really descended into violent rhetoric, and that's yeah, he, I wouldn't really say he deserved it, but he really just shouldn't have said those things, because that's the stuff they said about Charlie Kirk." It's a really sad and scary reality, and for me, I feel for my family. I feel for anybody who has taken on this thinking and allowed themselves to be consumed by this devil, because that's what it is. It's the temptation to dehumanize that has been sold them through a type of brainwashing. What that does is it brings to mind this famous quote by Carl Sagan. One of the saddest lessons of history is this. If we've been bamboozled long enough, we tend to reject any evidence of the bamboozle. We're no longer interested in finding out the truth. The bamboozle has captured us. It's simply too painful to acknowledge, even to ourselves, that we've been taken. Once you give a charlatan power over you, you almost never get it back. I see this very clearly. I see that this is the rhetoric of today. This is the rhetoric of dehumanization that's happening, that has caused everyone to be bamboozled if you're on the left. And it's just a horrific reality.